that it is thanks to the love and support of this community that we were able to build a village for special needs children out in Tanzania. That village now provides a safe and loving home to nearly 200 children that were living in crisis. Most of these children are special needs, but a lot of these children were homeless, and the majority have no parents or guardians in this world other than the family that this community has allowed us to create. Everything that we do to support these children is made possible by this community and those who choose to share what they can and get involved and become, as I often call it, in their own way, a percentage of the parental role for these little ones. For those of you who are already partnering with us, thank you for the love and support. But for those of you who don't know about it, everything that we do is made possible thanks to partners, those who choose to partner with our family and with it make everything that we do possible and keep our doors open for the next children who need some help or a safe and loving family home. If you'd like to hear more about our partnership program, you can do so by visiting www.sharetanzania.com/partnership. Thank you for all of the love and support, guys. We couldn't do this without you. God bless. For the last 2 months, I have not been posting as frequently and regularly as I used to. And the reason for that is that I have been helping, first of all, with our new daughter who was born 8 weeks ago. If you don't follow our other social media channels, you may not know that. Her name is Anouk, and she is a beautiful light in our lives at this time. I will come back to a more regular posting schedule now that Anouk is a little older and Fritzi has recovered. However, this week I will be traveling to Tanzania, and so hopefully I will be able to provide you with some updates about the children in the children's village. And before I go further, I also want to say thank you for the support for the new vehicles. We have what we need to buy the vehicles that were required for the children and to have their daily lives functional as a family unit. And we are looking around now for the right vehicle, or we may well import. Usually from Japan we import vehicles in Tanzania. And when all of that is done, I will update you all and share with you what your love and sharing has brought to this ever-growing family, which is profoundly difficult to manage and navigate. On the topic of children, of my daughter, a lot of people often ask this question. And that question, especially when you speak into the presence of what I will call the Christ, the awakened state, the presence of placing compassion first. Many people come with scenarios, and it's valid that you do. The scenarios that often come are, what if your children were being attacked? Or what if someone you love is being attacked? Life is a very difficult walk, and for all we can connect to the truth of unity, that the awareness that twinkles in the eyes of a newborn baby is the same awareness that is entombed in the actions of a terrorist or of somebody who kills a child or murders a child, etc. It's the same light. One light has not yet been polluted by thought, by mind. The other light is polluted. It is lost in a maze of thought and self-identity and belief that separates it from the presence of God's compassion. And in that great suffering of believing that they are a mind and body and believing often that these thoughts are their way to connect with God, meanwhile never really knowing the presence of God's love and compassion in their very selves. That same awareness is trapped, and that awareness is that which animates us. It animates human life, the soul essence that brings light to the eyes. Inside our world there will come times where human beings who are indeed the light of God, just as we are, just as we all are, but some human beings will be so tangled in a personal history and a personal meanness, so tangled in thought that they are happy to move into the domain of Satan. And the domain of Satan relies heavily on the betrayal of reality through thought. And we call that lying. Truth is to anchor in the what-isness at whatever cost. You anchor in truth at any cost. You share with your loved ones the reality around you. You do so, and you require faith to do it, for you may be aware that by sharing a truth with someone, it's going to upset them, or it may cause them to be angry at you. And so we owe it, the truth, to all we meet. And yet you may well decide to, out of fear, to not share that truth. And this begins a betrayal of reality. Thought begins inside of us to betray reality. When the souls that are all God's children mature and enter a space where they are obsessed with self-will and its analysis and its plans, and are moving into the space of trying to manipulate their way through instead of pray their way through in faith. Some of us who walk in the presence of God, through the actions of others abusing their free will, and with it abusing the plans of God or other human beings, are indeed jeopardizing the well-being of innocent lives. We are drawn from the presence of non-duality. We are drawn from the presence of compassion and peace, being that which we stand with, into an exchange of duality. We are pulled into it. When that happens, as many wrote me after I spoke about the Israel and Palestine situation, which is continuing to be a horrendous, violent and ungodly manifestation of human behavior, many people asked, what if it was your children? What if someone was attacking your children? And the reality is, of course, 100%, I would defend them. I would give my life, not only for my own children, but I would give my life for the other children that God has blessed me with being the guardian and the steward of out in East Africa. That immediately may sound contradictory to my message, but it does not contradict it. If I, in my waking life, am unfortunate enough to come across a manifestation of Satan in human form through a human being which is obsessed with their selfish desire and their hunger for power and the greed, etc., or they have been programmed with incorrect notions of God which are satanic, and they wish to do harm to me or to my children. In this world we are not as yet free from these conflicts, and I, as an individual expression of the collective of humanity, may be drawn into a conflict. When I am drawn into a conflict to protect my children, the duty of those who are not attached into that conflict is to provide a space and a reminder that as you descend into a conflict, you will descend into emotion, As you descend into emotion, Satan will come and he will try to have you justify killing and violence, and he will try to seduce you into the justification of such actions, because you are engaged in a conflict that was not brought about by God or by really your fellow man, but by men who had fallen into the separation of the presence of Satan, of that state of personal meanness that cannot know the compassion of God. It is the responsibility of those who are not involved in the battle that I am involved with, as an example, to keep me anchored with the goal. As unfortunately, if not, even I, who speaks and has seen this place of compassion and speaks to thousands of people about it, this awakened state, as I call it, this freedom, this liberation from duality, where you pursue the knowledge of good and evil operating system, where you descend into that's good and that's bad, and you get all that contorted energy from this persistent usage of that operating system, which is the fallen state. You cannot know the compassion that is supernatural if you dwell in there or if you are lost in there. And when a human being is dragged into a battle because of the abuse of free will or Satan's deceptions, etc., the way I have seen it is that it is the responsibility of those around them who are not engaged to hold the truth for them and say, we are sorry that this is happening, that you've been drawn into this, whatever it may be, bloodshed, etc., this negative exchange, this conflict. But please never lose sight, whilst you are drawn in there by Satan, which is often inescapable, that the only way we get free of conflict is when compassion is that which animates the intelligence of every human heart. And that means that when you descend into it, you must remember that you do not want to be there. Do not let Satan seduce you into justifying violence as a solution. If I just eradicate every human being who is like this, then it will be done with. This is a seduction, and it's a nonsensical seduction for human beings who do not inwardly engineer themselves to know the presence of Christ, the presence of Creator, the awakened state. Those humans who do not go into the rebirth, they can become those that other humans destroy. For we don't understand the buttons that are being pressed within us by the fallen ones, by Satan, and by those who have an allegiance with them in the human story, our fellow man that works with Satan. Any human and their psychology can be triggered again to bring those people about. So you cannot kill every person that is opposed to you. It can't be done. And so you may be drawn into conflict. And I would die for my children. I would. I know I would. But I would never lose sight of the notion that this is a solution. That once Satan has brought me into conflict, that somehow this is going to be a solution. That if I just keep eradicating people, keep fighting, holding on to unforgiveness, etc., etc., that this will be a solution for humanity's persistent struggle with conflict. It will not be. Conflict is born from separation. Separation is born from thought. Thought that controls man is the knowledge of good and evil operating system. When man liberates himself of that as his dominant operating system, no matter what Satan does, however heinous and harsh it may be, if it is not directly threatening your children, it is not directly threatening your life, you should be able to remain anchored in the truth of the solution. And as we come towards a new future with humanity, we need to keep that solution in sight. If you are Christian, you should know this. For the spiritual rebirth Christ spoke of is not to give birth to a new identity that is a spiritual ego, It is to know the living presence of that love born in you. And you should know, therefore, that this is the goal that we always hang on to. Life will happen, but let us never be seduced into believing the satanic road, that violence and war is ever going to help humanity to progress. You may be serving God, and the enemy may come at you. I am facing a situation at present where the enemy has entered a man who I trusted, and nobody any longer trusts him. He has betrayed us, he has cheated us, and he has tried to steal from the children who are disabled. I will forgive this man, for I forgive everybody, because I have been all things unholy myself. If God can work through me, he can work through anyone. St. Francis said that, and the same I reflect on myself. So I find forgiveness easy due to my past. However, it doesn't mean that there's not work to be done. It doesn't mean that the children that we protect are not vulnerable due to the presence of such a human being. And therefore, for all nobody wants to be drawn into the wicked ways that have been exposed, we must enter into that realm. We must enter into that space to deal with this wickedness and ensure that our children are safe from such wickedness going forward. The ability to be drawn into this and become emotional and to fall into where Satan would like us, purely based on conflict, based on a personal meanness, not based on a want for the restoration of compassion and peace. It's easy in conflict to fall into that place. But we must hold space for those who are at war. We must hold the energetic space for all of them to remember, to be bombarded with the message that conflict and separation has a causality. And the causality is not standing with compassion and peace. When Yeshua spoke about the adulteress who was to be stoned to death, the adulteress had done something wrong. We are led to believe that she was guilty. She did something she should not. Those men who wished to stone her to death, they too were doing something they should not, uncompassionate action, because the scripture told them that they should. Yeshua's answer to that was, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." What Yeshua was saying, if you look deeply at that, is stand with compassion. Yeshua was not emotionally involved in that exchange, so he was able to stay in the presence of God, the peace of God, the compassion of God, and to bring that message which diffused the situation into the conflict. We too must do that. And the media, the satanic media, is desperate, even the Christian media I am seeing, is desperate to drag you into duality and sides. Whereas all Christian media, at least, should be standing looking at such a conflict and saying, let us remember the suffering and torment that occurs here is all Satan's want. And let us persistently remind those that have gotten lost inside the operating system of the knowledge of good and evil and the dualistic conflict. Let us all remind them that it really should be he who is without sin cast the first stone. In other words, come away from this nonsense about who is right, who is wrong, who is evil, who is good, and come back to compassion and let that animate your intelligence for a week or two. For there we would give birth to intelligence in the hearts of men, and we would come to a point where we can offer solutions that are compassionate. For those who are on the ground, who feel they are protecting loved ones or losing loved ones in the airstrikes, etc., this message is impossible to hear almost. It is, however, important that it is spread far and wide persistently. For those children who grow up having seen terrors and horrors, we hope that they don't become the next generation who gives birth to conflict and vengeance. We hope they find forgiveness and understanding that their fellow man had fallen into satanic ways, and they were not standing with compassion. If the message is persistent and clear across humanity, if it's persistent and clear, if everybody who is Christian knew this message clearly, they weren't lured into the duality where Satan's luring them, we stand more of a chance of ending conflict, of ending separation, as more and more humans adopt the clear goal of standing with compassion, standing with peace. The clear teaching of let he who is without sin cast the first stone. The clear teaching that the one who offers compassion is your neighbour, not the one who is of your religion alone, as Jesus said with the Good Samaritan. We are getting lost inside these identities that the knowledge of good and evil operating system creates inside of us. And the reality was you were never supposed to form a new identity. The rebirth was that you were supposed to stand as an empty vessel, ready to receive the divine will of God through the grace of the offering of forgiveness and love towards you, despite your errors and your ways. We are supposed to do this, stand with compassion always, and yet we as individuals may be drawn into conflict. And in those states of conflict, how can you be compassionate against someone who's trying to hurt innocent lives or trying to steal from you? You have to deal with it. You can still deal with it without hatred, however. But if it comes to the point a man is physically wanting to attack your family, I would defend my family. But I would hope and pray that whatever wounds I receive within there spiritually, physically and emotionally, which Satan wants these wounds to go into us, that those around me would bring me back to compassion and not let me identify with these memories and this torment, and allow me to be free of that image of self that will do that by helping me to move into forgiveness, by helping me to be free. Healing is freedom from the personal history. This is healing. As personal history lets go, healing and forgiveness is born. The personal history, the personal self, it can't forgive. You have to let go of that for the healing to spontaneously come through. I would hope if I get caught in such a situation, which by the grace of God I believe will never happen, but if it were to happen, I would hope everybody here would be astute enough to recognize that this man may fall due to what he's gone through. Let us remind him to stand in compassion before the fallen operating system of thought, the knowledge of good and evil, polluted element of the fallen element of the human body, takes a grip on his soul and turns him into one who wants vengeance and malice and anger and violence. Let us persistently saturate everything around him with the truth of the love of God and the compassion of God and the forgiveness of God, to ensure that another soul doesn't become lost in the illusion of the fallen world and Maya, for that is the goal of this place in the satanic hands, to make your soul go against all of its nature of where it's from, believe the duality, and enter into valuing the God of this world, the creator of this world, I would argue, the Archon, the satanic, to believe upon that reality as a priority, as more important than the reality from where we came, from where we were brought in from. It's a battle between the God of this world and the God of your soul. And the God of this world wishes for you to sell your soul to him in exchange for belief in this creation. But when we fast and when we pray and we overcome our connection through the five senses to the body in this realm, the body is a gift, I love my body, but when you fast and you overcome it and you see beyond it, you see through that matrix, you see through that trap. And there, when we stand in compassion, when we awaken into that power of the Christ in yourselves, which is that awakened non-dual state. There, we as human beings have a great spiritual toolbox that the fallen ones fear, for they move in this dimension from another, but they cannot reach the heights that a human can reach when they are liberated from the illusion of Maya, the fallen world, the god of this world, and the fallen state. You can reach the Christic realm, and when you saw manifestation in this world from the Christic realm, there is not a servant of Satan can do anything to change that once it is in flow, once it's set about on its journey. There will be battles to be won, but the greatest battle is between the demonic influence that is restraining humanity away from their true nature of compassion. And the only way to take those demons away from your fellow man is by stepping out of the knowledge of good and evil operating system, the seduction that violence is going to solve it collectively, overall, and coming into that place of supernatural love, where you recognize the love with which you have been loving is the love you are, and there you become an extension of the divine will. There you become an extension of Christ's power. There you are born as a vessel free of memory that is merely lovingly aware of every passing moment and yielded to the divine will that is speaking internally to them. That is the spiritual rebirth. This is the power Satan fears. And this is our responsibility when our brothers and sisters are caught in conflict, to remind them as persistently as possible that this will not bring a solution. We must return back to let he who is without sin cast the first stone. We must return back to standing with compassion when we ourselves are not drawn into a survival scenario, for that is the only solution. We must keep it as our goal. The loving awareness in the eyes of a child, in the eyes of me, in the eyes of you, in the eyes of a terrorist, in the eyes of a military personnel who's drawn into conflict. It is all the same. And Satan is desperate through thought to make you forget that and play out the sin nature, to play out the game of suffering in this fallen world. Don't play the game. Stand in your power. You are a Christ. For as it says in the Bible, as he was in this world, so are you. And as it says, for I have died, and in my place Christ has been born. You are that. Live by it. Jesus was clear. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Stand with compassion. And try to stand with it before you're dragged into conflict. Sometimes it's inescapable. But if you can keep hold of the truth of compassion in the conflict, your soul stays safe. For Satan would love nothing more than to drag you into the amnesic state of the flesh, as we call it, and its rivalry, and its anger, and its malice, and its deception. Don't let him. I love you all. My apologies for the bad light. God bless. Bye. Most of you know that it is thanks to the love and support of this community that we were able to build a village for special needs children out in Tanzania. That village now provides a safe and loving home to nearly 200 children that were living in crisis. Most of these children are special needs, but a lot of these children were homeless, and the majority have no parents or guardians in this world other than the family that this community has allowed us to create. Everything that we do to support these children is made possible by this community and those who choose to share what they can and get involved and become, as I often call it, in their own way, a percentage of the parental role for these little ones. For those of you who are already partnering with us, thank you for the love and support. But for those of you who don't know about it, everything that we do is made possible thanks to partners. Those who choose to partner with our family and with it make everything that we do possible and keep our doors open for the next children who need some help or a safe and loving family home. If you'd like to hear more about our partnership program, you can do so by visiting www.sharetanzania.com/partnership. Thank you for all of the love and support, guys. We couldn't do this without you. God bless.